Welcome to Game Theorem, where we have serious discussions about absurd entertainment.
We tend to have these roles for a reason, and that reason usually finds us, especially if we are to achieve God-tier ascension. Calliope, the muse of space.
Homestuck!
Yes! So, I'm Kyle.
I'm Kira.
And today we're doing something a little different. If you've been listening to our show so far, then you know that our podcast is divided in between deep dives and wide looks. We alternate between the two, right? Mm-hmm. But lately, we've been feeling like we have to really rush through some of our episodes, especially the deep dives.
Yeah.
And we already have several series that we want to revisit. Mm-hmm. At this rate, we see we got, Homestuck, Fallout, Fairy Tale, Pokemon. So many deep dives that we want to revisit. So we're going to now have a third category, and this is our first episode in that category. We're going to have revisit episodes where we go back and we revisit deep dives we've already had. So we'll talk about the franchise and we'll talk more about it. Sometimes this might be like Fairy Tale or Fallout, where we just have, the follow-up. Like the story chronologically was so long that we had to divide it.
Yeah.
Now, some of them are going to be like this episode with Homestuck, where we want to just do a deep dive into a particular part of the franchise.
Because it's literally so enormous that we can't do, just a whole timeline of everything that happens or anything like that.
Yes, and we would like to do this with many franchises. Of course, revisits are only going to happen on ones that we really, really love.
Of course.
So some franchises, like maybe Lost Girl, it's only going to have the one episode.
Yeah.
All right, so we wanted to talk about Homestuck again, but we were thinking, what about Homestuck should we talk about?
Oh, spoilers, by the way.
Oh, right, thank you.
Oh, crap. Is Calliope being Muse of Space a spoiler?
Barely. And the quote at the beginning is always just give you a little taste. It's very minor spoiler territory.
Fair enough.
We try not to have any mind-bending revelations in the first quote.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
So Homestuck is a webcomic. We've previously discussed it. Check out our first episode where we just did a huge overview of it. We like to break down the mythological roles. If you want to know what those are, basically every character in Homestuck is considered a player in the game of Spurb. And each player can get a classical, or not even a classical, just some type of element. And that is what powers they get. If you level up all the way, you can become essentially a god. And that's called going into the god tiers.
Yes.
So, for example, Kira, pick some elements. Just not from Homestuck, just let's say we're making a new franchise, right? And we need elemental creatures. Pick some elements. Go.
Fire, water, earth, air.
More. Come on, more.
Lightning.
Okay, keep going. Keep going. Come on. Pick something.
Okay.
No time to think. Pick something.
What other elements?
Pick an element. Just think of
fine.
one.
Gold. Gold's an element.
Not the periodic table. Pick an element.
Well, those are elements, okay?
No, like you have creatures, right? You have fictional creatures. It's a type. What type is it? Not one that you've already picked.
Oh, okay. Can I just start listing Pokemon types?
Okay, that's the point I was trying to go into. Whenever you ask someone to pick types or elements, right? Usually they will start off with the first 4 elemental ones, right? Then they will tell you Pikachu's type. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Then, usually if you keep pressing them to ask for it, in my opinion, what comes next is essentially a listing of Pokemon elements. And that's what I was trying to get out of you. Although you went to the periodic table, so maybe I'm not entirely accurate.
I only went to the periodic table because you know me.
Although I think most people would have included light or dark.
Oh, yeah, true.
I brought that up because one thing I think Homestuck does that's really cool is almost none of those elements that you mentioned are in here.
Yeah, I know none of them are, but each character essentially has an element.
No, that's just a thematical motive. It doesn't have anything to do with the story.
Okay.
Because when it comes to the mythological roles, each character has what's called a class and an aspect.
Well, that's what I was talking about. Each of them have their own aspect.
Yes, yeah. But that's not the classical elements. Classical elements are fire, earth, wind, and water.
Oh, I see what you mean. No, I was talking about how each of them have their own aspect.
Except you said classical.
Sorry.
Yeah, because these ones are called aspects. And we think they're really unique, don't you think?
I agree.
We might one day do an episode breaking down Pokemon types. That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah.
But for now, we're going to do something a little bit more special. Mm-hmm. All right, so I've given kind of an overview. You want to take it from here, Kira?
All right. Each Spur player has a mythological role, also known as a class spect. Mythological roles can be broken down into two parts, classes and aspect. Out of the class and aspect a player has can be assembled a title that determines how the player controls their element, which is basically what their class and aspect are for. Gaia assigns each player's mythological role.
Oh, by the way, Skaya is like the deity, the game master of the game.
Yes. It's its own entity, but it's also part of the game, but it's complicated.
It's like a living sun.
Mm-hmm. Sky assigns each player's mythological role before they're born, and each player is expected to grow into their title if they wish to succeed or become god tier. Some players readily accept their title, but some players fight it and go against their titles via outside means. For example, a light player can still invoke powers of the horror terrors at the detriment of their title.
Horror terrors are like Lovecraftian beasts.
Yes, and
cosmic horror.
Mm-hmm. And Durst players can communicate with them.
Yes.
Which is what it was talking about.
And those terms might be familiar if you listen to our first episode, but it's not really important. That's other game mechanic stuff. We're going to be focusing just on the mythological roles for now. Mm-hmm. You want to keep going?
All right.
We're going to talk about classes first. So, classes, there's many. There's rogue, thief, heir, maid, page, knight, seer, mage, sylph, witch, bard, prince, lord, and muse. Mm-hmm. All right.
That's a quick overview of all of them.
Okay, you give the longer one.
Okay. A class is the first part of a player's title, and it determines by what means the player uses, channels, or deploys their aspect. Basically, how they use their aspect. There are 12 standard classes as well as 2 additional master classes, and each class can be categorized as either active or passive. Active classes tend to act directly or in an offensive manner, whereas passive classes tend to act indirectly or in a defensive manner. When a player's class is unknown or not specified, the term hero is often a placeholder in viable or null sessions. In void sessions, the term noble is preferred.
And sessions are just the game.
Mm-hmm. Although I didn't know about those terms.
Yeah, because, you might be the rogue of void, and there might also be a thief of void, and you would call the two of them the heroes of void. Hero is just a generic term. You're not being specific.
I see. Also, some classes tend to be a specific gender, some classes are assigned exclusively to a particular gender. Also note that, should a player become god tier, the style of their magic pajamas is an indicator of their title, for the classes have unique designs for each of them.
Yep, because when you go god tier in the game, when you end up sacrificing yourself to get past the levels and you get to the god tier levels, you get magic pajamas.
And their style is determined by your class spec.
Yeah, they basically indicate you've gone god tier now. You got superpowers.
Mm-hmm. They're basically like a superhero outfit.
Yeah, and we talked about the gender thing. I'm really just kind of rolling my eyes at that, because that's one thing we talked about with Homestuck is that they had that huge gender binary.
Yeah, but I suppose you can just kind of ignore it if you really want to.
I mean, it is somewhat problematic, but much less so than basically anything else we've covered.
Yeah.
I mean, almost all media these days is so heteronormative and gender binary.
Yep, so you just kind of have to accept it.
How about we alternate with going over the classes? I want to talk some.
Okay, sure.
I like talking. Have you noticed? We started a podcast and I like talking.
Yes, I have noticed.
Okay, it's only when there's something cool to talk about. If you just see me on the street and you're like, hey, how's the weather? I'm just going to walk by and just stare at you angrily and not say a word. It's like, how do you think the weather's doing? Look up.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I won't do that.
Yeah.
I'll be nice, but it won't be fun. Sorry. Should we go back to Homestuck now?
Yes.
Okay. The first class is the Rogue class. It's the passive counterpart to the Thief, and it's assigned typically, but not exclusively, to female players. Rogues steal their aspect from people or things, and then redistribute the stolen aspect to other people or other things.
They're Robin Hood. They're the Robin Hood of their aspect.
Basically. Oh, I should note, in this breakdown where we explain how all this is going to work, we know a lot of it because Homestuck explains it at some point. Not all parts are explained thoroughly, so we had to kind of extrapolate. Mm-hmm. All right, your turn.
The thief class is the active counterpart to the rogue, and it is assigned typically, but not exclusively, to female players. Thieves steal their aspect from people or things and then hoard the stolen aspect to themselves. I think that's funny because it seems as though the passive classes are more selfless, whereas the active classes are all selfish.
I think to an extent, but both of them can be used for good or bad.
Yeah, that's true. Any class can be used to any end, honestly.
Yeah, because if you've ever read or listened to the dub of Homestuck, then you'll know that there are many player characters which do very good things, and there's many that are evil and do many bad things. Mm-hmm. One of the somewhat evil ones is actually a thief of light.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we've got the heir class. The heir class is an active counterpart to the maid, and is assigned typically, but not exclusively, to male players. Heirs inherit their aspect by proving themselves worthy of receiving it.
That's interesting.
It's nebulous.
Yeah.
That's one of the more nebulous ones.
Yeah.
It's like, basically, you inherit it because you're internally worth it? Okay.
Maid. The maid class is the passive counterpart to the heir, and it is assigned exclusively to female players. Maids serve and assist others through the aspect of which they are made.
Yeah, maids are actually great to have on any team. They are really team players. Mm-hmm. Next, we have the page. The page class is the passive counterpart to the knight, and is assigned typically, but not exclusively, to male players. Pages create their aspect, and then provide their aspect to others around them.
The knight class is the active counterpart to the page, and it is assigned equally to players of all genders. Knights exploit their aspect and then utilize their aspect as a weapon they equip to themselves.
So that's more selfish.
Mm-hmm.
But they could still be powerful warrior kind of people.
Mm-hmm. They use their aspect as a weapon, basically.
Yes. The seer class is the passive counterpart to the mage, and is assigned equally to players of all genders. Seers benefit others with their comprehensive knowledge of their aspect. Seers are also known to have glimpsed versions of their alternate selves, like in alternate timelines and universes and whatnot.
Yeah, I really like the seer class, honestly.
It's cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. And the characters we have that are seers are really cool, too.
Definitely.
Mage. The mage class is the active counterpart to the seer, and it is assigned equally to players of all genders. Mages forfeit their aspect to gain comprehensive knowledge pertaining to their aspect.
Yeah, mages are weird. It's like, if you're a mage, you basically don't get the superpowers, but you know everything about them. So like, the only people who actually understand how their powers work are the ones who can't use them.
That's kind of weird,
I mean, the other ones you can learn and kind of get it, but the mages will fully know.
Mm-hmm.
The sylph class is the passive counterpart to the witch, and is assigned typically, but not exclusively, to female players. Sylphs benefit others through an abstraction of their aspect, and then utilize their aspect metaphysically.
So, they don't use their aspect directly.
Yeah, it's always indirect, and, very nebulous, that one.
Mm-hmm. Witch. The witch class is the active counterpart to the sylph, and it is assigned exclusively to female players. Witches manipulate their aspect into breaking the rules and choose which facet of their aspect to invoke.
Yeah, so witches are pretty powerful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Bard. The bard class is the passive counterpart to the prince, and is assigned exclusively to male players. Bards invite destruction through their aspect, and prove to be wild cards, easily capable of earning sudden victories or massive defeats for their teams.
Yeah, it's kind of just crazy.
Every bard that appears in Homestuck essentially goes off on their own and does their own thing.
Mm-hmm. Prince. The prince class is the active counterpart to the bard, and it is assigned exclusively to male players. Princes are destroyers of their aspect and destroy their aspect both within themselves and within others they choose as their enemies.
Yes. So I think the classes are really important in how these come into play, because princes, like we said, they destroy it, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of using your aspect as a superpower, it's more like you destroy it anytime you find it, whether it's in yourself or others.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting.
It's like a breakdown kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, so those are all the main classes, but there's the two master classes we talked about.
Yes.
So the Lord class is one of the master classes and is more likely to be assigned in games with 2 or less players. The Lord class is the most active class and the counterpart to the Muse, and is assigned exclusively to male players. Lords instruct their aspect to obey their whims or desires, and have the capacity to threaten reality with their aspect.
Muse. The Muse class is one of the master classes, and it is more likely to be assigned in games with 2 or less players. The Muse class is the most passive class, and the counterpart to the Lord, and it is assigned exclusively to female players. Muses inspire their aspect through self-sacrifice, and have the capacity to salvage reality through selfless uses of their aspect.
Yep. And Calliope at the beginning was a Muse. Now, in our last Homestuck podcast, we actually quoted the Lord of Time. He was a lord. He was selfish.
Yeah, like he was literally incapable of doing anything for anyone other than himself.
Right.
And Calliope, honestly, was almost entirely incapable of doing anything for anyone for
herself, is what you're saying?
For herself.
Right. Okay, so those are the classes. Next one, going aspects. So, quick overview. Aspects, like we talked about classes, that's how they're used, right? Aspects is going to be the element itself and what they can control. So aspects include space, time, mind, heart, hope, rage, breath, blood, life, doom, light, and void.
Yeah, that's a lot of aspects.
All right, so Kira, why don't you tell us what aspects all about?
All right, and aspects...
I should also mention, classes were hard to get the definitions of. That's something we had to research ourselves. But... aspects, you can actually find a lot of information about aspects on the official Homestuck Extended Zodiac website.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you can check that out.
We gotta talk about that after.
Well, I mean, it also talks about zodiac signs and whatnot, but that's not really the focus of this podcast. But it does actually have a lot of information about the aspects themselves and what types of personalities tend to have those aspects. So we'll definitely talk about that. All right.
All right, an aspect is the second part of a player's title, and it indicates what associated element or primal force of reality a player is assigned. There are 12 different aspects, and the method of how a player uses their aspect depends on their class. The use of aspects for players is usually subtle at first, but aspects can become extremely apparent once a player enters the god tiers. Also note that, should a player become god tier, the color of their magic pajamas is an indicator of their title, for the aspects have unique designs for each of them. They also get their aspect symbol on their chest.
Oh yeah, each one has a symbol for it.
Yeah.
We'll probably put one of those for the little icon on this podcast. The aspect of space consists of the physical fabric of paradox space itself, spatial dimensions, and the fundamental forces of physics. It is the counterpart to the aspect of time, and there is always a space player in every viable session of the game.
Okay.
Those bound to the aspect of space are, as the name suggests, concerned with the big picture. They are patient, masters of the art of wait and see, and are inclined to take things as they come. That isn't to say they're pushovers or willing to let injustice lie. They just choose their battles wisely, understanding that sometimes you have to let something burn to the ground in order to build it back better and stronger than before. To this effect, they tend to be innovators, concerned with creation and redemption. Catch them recycling the old to make the new, the fresh, and the beautiful for the spacebound. The journey is as, if not more, important than the destination. How they do something is as important as what they do. At their best, they are steady, impartial, and creative. At their worst, they can be detached, apathetic, and vague.
All right.
So, yeah, spacey powers. And I should probably link to the Extended Zodiac in the description, just, citing our sources.
Yeah. Time. The aspect of time consists of the temporal fabric of paradox space, alternate timelines, and fundamental forces of time itself. It is the counterpart to the aspect of space, and there's always a time player in every viable session. Those bound to the aspect of time are fighters, full stop. Their lives are often marked by struggle, not so much because fate has it in for them, but because they are fundamentally incapable of just accepting things as they come. They value action over passive acceptance, even if that may not be the wisest or safest choice. Don't try to tell time bound to sit still and and look pretty. They are very goal-focused and tend to value the destination over the journey, and you won't find them making that journey in any traditional sort of way. To quote cheesy posters found on many a guidance counselor's wall, impossible is just a word. If you need a miracle, they are who you call. At their best, the time-bound are empathetic and relentless problem solvers. At their worst, they are ruthless, defensive, and impulsive.
Time players cause so much time shenanigans with alternate timelines and time loops and duplicate selves. Time players are cool. Mind. The aspect of mind consists of the thoughts made by sentient individuals, the decisions they make, and the consequences of those decisions. It is the counterpart to the aspect of heart. Those bound to the aspect of mind are, you guessed it, the universe's great thinkers. But don't for a second think that means that they have all the answers. They are very concerned with remaining rational, and they have such a firm hold on the constant conjunction of their thinking that it's easy for them to see the multitudes of the choices laid out before them, which often leaves them frozen and unable to act. That said, when a mind-bound finally launches into action, they can execute a plan with unbelievable grace and precision. Their identity is fluid. It can change from day to day, from thought to thought, from interaction to interaction. Remaining logical is more important to them than building up a solid foundation of self. At their best, they are great innovators, architects, and creators. At their worst, they can be nasty, inflexible, and indecisive. Maybe I think while you guys are listening to this, think about which one you identify with, which one describes you. Not just which aspect or class you think would be cool to have, but rather which description do you think describes you? I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the extended zodiac.
Yeah, but you could go take the extended zodiac and at least get an aspect.
That is true.
Heart. The aspect of heart consists of the souls of living things, the emotions they have, and the motivations and inclinations they feel. It is the counterpart to the aspect of mind. Those bound to the aspect of heart are very concerned with their favorite subject, themselves. It wouldn't be a stretch to call them self-obsessed, but not necessarily in a negative way. They simply want to understand the one thing we are all stuck with for our entire lives, our own minds. Forging an identity is extremely important to the heart-bound, and every decision and action goes towards building a coherent narrative of their own story. That isn't to say the heartbound don't care deeply for their friends and allies, they just have a tendency to assume that everyone is as concerned with identity as they are. They are excellent in putting on and taking off masks as the situation calls for them. At their best, they are competent, imaginative, and steady. At their worst, they can be overbearing, inflexible, and cold.
Sounds accurate. Hope. The aspect of hope consists of the belief of hope itself, spirituality, and the sacred nature of the belief in the divine. It is the counterpart to the aspect of rage. Those bound to the aspect of hope are driven first and foremost by their convictions. They do right for right's sake, and are quick to come to the aid of anyone they deem to be experiencing injustice. That said, their views of the world can be quite black and white, so what they see as the right thing may not always be the universally accepted view. They put great value in the power of imagination, the ability to dream up a better and more beautiful future. If anyone could dream a better world into existence, it would be one of the hope-bound. They may sound like all sunshine and rainbows, but they aren't adverse to a little destruction, especially if they think they could replace it with something better and more just. At their best, hope-bound are positive, caring, and warm. At their worst, they can be narrow-minded and selfish.
Rage. The aspect of rage consists of the manifestations of chaos, feelings of righteous fury and anger, and carnal expressions of strength. It is the counterpart to the aspect of hope. Those bound to the aspect of rage are bringers of chaos. They possess great contempt for lies or false ideas, including the stability that false ideas can impart. To them, the true is far more important than the good. They would tear down a system just to destabilize it if, by their reckoning, it is built on a faulty premise. Often, the rage-bound prefer anarchy to any of the alternate forms of civilization, which they believe to be riddled with lies and foolishness and obedient masses. They are bringers of confusion and doubt, and they can be frustratingly difficult to convince otherwise when they have attached themselves to an idea. If they sound dangerous, they are. The rage-bound tend to be most volatile and unpredictable of the aspect. At their best, they are original, revolutionary, and fearless. At their worst, they are cruel, uncompromising, and vicious.
All the rage players have been very dangerous so far, so that checks out.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we have breath. The aspect of breath consists of the air in the forms of the breeze and wind, the concept of freedom, and the ability to change. It is the counterpart to the aspect of blood. So this is the only classical element on the list. Those bound to the aspect of breath are, above all, expansive. Flexible and driven, they leave an impact wherever they go. Like the breeze itself, they are able to sweep others up to carry along in their wake, but also like the breeze, they can be difficult to catch hold of or tie down. Although breathbound do make very good leaders, breath tends to be a very personal aspect. Often heroism comes along as an offshoot of them pursuing their own personal stories. They lead by example, and will routinely be surprised that others look up to or feel inspired by them. They have a tendency to underestimate themselves, and not always out of poor self-esteem. They were just doing their own thing. At their best, breathbound are motivated, adaptable, and forward-thinking. But at their worst, they can be volatile, avoidant, and gullible. Which basically describes the protagonist completely.
Yeah. All right, blood. The aspect of blood consists of the bonds of friendship, kindred, and family, and the concept of unification through leadership. It is the counterpart to the aspect of breath. Those bound to the aspect of blood draw their strength from bonds, from the trust and camaraderie that blooms among a group of people who all share a single vision. Bloodbound are absolutely leaders, but they inhabit more of an inspirational role than a commanding one. They are prophets rather than generals, giving others the strength and motivation to keep fighting. The bloodbound can dispense excellent advice even when their own lives and interpersonal relationships are disasters. They can be very do as I say, not as I do types. A bloodbound can often be found on a sinking ship, forcing an endeavor forward with sheer stubborn force of will. No matter how bad things go, a bloodbound can always count on friends and allies. At their best, they are charismatic, uplifting, and magnetic. At their worst, they can be sullen, unkind, and set in their ways.
Carcat.
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk about trolls one day with Homestuck, because not all players are human, right? And so the main troll character, who's like an alien kind of thing, he's a blood player. Next, we got life. The aspect of life consists of the life force and chi found in all living things, the nature of health, and the advancement of positive progress. It is the counterpart to the aspect of doom. Those bound to the aspect of life are the universe's healers. They are concerned with the betterment of themselves and those around them, as well as the onward march of positive progress. Deeply empathetic, they have an intuitive understanding of others' suffering, and the best way of righting those wrongs. If you're poisoned, chances are the lifebound have something for what ails you. This applies to both physical and mental suffering, though it might not be a cure you'll like. They also have the tendency to put others' needs before their own, which never ends well for anyone, because the lifebound can grow bitter if they feel their own self-care has to be shunted aside. At their best, they are great listeners, caretakers, and nurturers. At their worst, the lifebound are passive-aggressive and pushy. They're certain they know best.
That's the aspect I got, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you remember what mine was mind, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, yours was mind. Doom. The aspect of doom consists of the misery of suffering, the concepts of impeding destruction and death, and self-sacrifice. It is the counterpart to the aspect of life. Yeah, doom's not a very fun aspect.
No, but it does sound cool.
It sounds cool.
I think I've just been saying everything's cool.
Those bound to the aspect of doom are fate's chosen sufferers. It may not sound like an overly pleasant aspect to be aligned with, but it does come along with great wisdom and empathy. The doom-bound understand that misery loves company, and they are ready and willing to provide said company. The doom-bound won't fix you. They aren't healers. They're commiserators, aware that sometimes the only thing you can do for a person is let them know that they are not alone in their suffering. They are not the advice friend. They're the friend you go to when you need to vent about a rough day at work. They're not necessarily noble martyrs. Either the doombound can become quite irate about their lot. At their best, they are wise, kind, and non-judgmental. At their worst, bitter, resentful, and fatalistic.
Next, we have light, there's been quite a few light players.
Yeah, there has been.
The aspect of light consists of the acquisition of knowledge, all forms of fortune and luck, and the concepts of fate and destiny. It is the counterpart to the aspect of void. Those bound to the aspect of light are the universe's knowledge seekers. They are, above all, driven to learn and understand. They are great alchemists, able to take multiple sources of information and synthesize them into something useful. They are scholars and researchers, absolutely dedicated to knowledge for knowledge's sake. They are the ultimate students, and although that might conjure up the image of people sitting around peacefully waiting for knowledge to be brought to them, that couldn't be further from the truth. The Lightbound will go after knowledge with a fierce intensity that others may find distasteful. They aren't overly concerned with laws or norms either. They often take rules as simple suggestions, instead searching for loopholes or workarounds. At their best, the Lightbound are resourceful and driven. At their worst, they can be fussy, pedantic, and insensitive. Oh, this last one's the coolest one. I know I said all of them were cool. This is the coolest one. All right, go.
Void. The aspect of void consists of the essence of nothingness, the obfuscation of knowledge, and the ability to be unseen. It is the counterpart to the aspect of light. Those bound to the aspect of void are the universe's secret keepers. The unknown doesn't scare them. Where others might see emptiness, they see potential. A blank page, an empty canvas, that's what the void bound live for. They value mystery and the unexplained, and are not particularly bothered by not having all the answers. Where others might be compelled to go out and seek answers, the void-bound lead more towards casting doubt on what is already considered fully understood. They don't take much on faith and would rather live in a state of confusion than believe something that might be untrue or bow to intellectual authority. After all, in order for something new to be built, the old rotting foundation must often be raised. At their best, void-bound are wise, intuitive, and vibrant. At their worst, they can be dismissive, indecisive, and apathetic.
All right. So those are all of the aspects, right? The thing interesting, though, with void, I want to say, though, is because void is kind of like the lack of something. Whenever you have a class, the mythological role, if you have a class and then you also have void, right? It doesn't matter what your class is, void kind of inverts it.
Yes.
So I guess we can get into titles and examples of characters and class aspect combinations, right?
Okay, can we start with the Rogue of Void then?
Sure.
Okay, so the Rogue of Void basically steals nothingness from things. Whereas you would normally imagine a rogue to be stealing things, she steals nothingness and therefore makes things appear instead of stealing things.
Exactly. When she steals the nothingness from something, it causes it to then exist.
Yes, which is a complete inversion of what you would expect her to be doing, which is just stealing objects.
Exactly, and because she's a rogue, she does it for other people's benefit. So like there's this one time when she actually ends up stealing the nothingness from an item that was extremely important to another player's quest. So that caused the item to then appear.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a list here. Why don't we go by aspect, right?
Okay.
So there are many players, but not all players go god tier. So a lot of players, they never actually get to fully realize their power. So most of what we're going to talk about is god tier players, or at least players that got somewhat close. So first of all, we have the Witch of Space, Jade. She was able to manipulate the size and position of any physical object.
Yeah, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, she was really powerful, honestly.
The Muse of Space, Calliope, was able to save reality by collapsing the green sun into a singularity.
Yeah, that was the whole self-sacrifice part of being a muse. And she collapsed the sun, so that's pretty spacey. The Maid of Time, Aradia, was able to duplicate herself via Doom timelines to serve the Alpha timeline. So like there were, hundreds of her at one time, because each one came from a version of the timeline where everyone else died.
Yep. The Knight of Time, Dave, was able to create stable time loops for strategic and combative purposes.
Right, so unlike...
He used time as a weapon.
Right. Unlike the Maid, which, came from all over reality to help, Dave can multiply himself, but it's all like a single time loop. If you see two Daves, one Dave will always eventually become the other Dave. We also have the Witch of Time, Damara, who was able to sabotage her own teammates using time travel.
Oh, really?
The witch is very, magic and attacky. So that's essentially what she did with her time travel.
Yep. The Lord of Time, Caliborn, was able to command temporal inevitability to always be in his favor. That's why he was always already there.
Yeah, we mentioned that in the last one, where basically his power means that, like, if you're ever fearful of him being there, he was already there. Like,
yeah.
Temporal inevitability, I think, is really the best way to say it. That he always got what he wanted. Okay, now we have, there's only one notable mind player, the Seer of Mind, Terezi. She was able to see the outcome of decisions in alternate timelines that branched from them. She was able to foresee this and then, try to make decisions with that knowledge in mind.
The Prince of Heart, Dirk, was able to splinter and even destroy souls and identities of himself and others. The Prince of Heart basically translates to Destroyer of Souls, which sounds pretty badass.
Yeah, so he was very jaded in a way. He didn't emote very much, so that kind of really suits him. Since he's the prince, he destroys the aspect, right?
Yeah.
And he was able to splinter other people's souls.
Yep.
And even his own. In fact, there were like several different versions of him that were not quite whole.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because I think Jake at one time tells him that he believes in him, and like literally 3 different versions of Dirk show up.
Yeah, because one of them was literally called Brain Ghost Dirk.
Yeah.
Where he was like a figment of an imaginary version of himself.
Yeah, but who had been given life through Jake's hope.
Well, that's what we're doing next, Hope. The Page of Hope, Jake, was able to create a giant incendiary hope field. And he was also able to create an imaginary friend version of Dirk.
Yes.
So that's an example.
Basically, Brain Ghost Dirk.
Yeah, which is an example of hope and heart powers overlapping. And you can combine powers to get some pretty cool things. They're called combinational frame motifs.
The Prince of Hope, Aridin, was able to use a white wand to destroy all hope of survival.
Oh, yeah, he was a huge jerk.
Yeah, he was basically the destroyer of hope.
That important item I told you that they needed to win the game, he was the one who destroyed the real one, and that's why they had to go steal the nothingness and make a new one.
Yes, but he gets chainsawed in half, so he gets his retribution.
Spoilers.
Oh, come on. We said spoilers at the beginning of the freaking episode.
All right. But, yeah, he's the destroyer of hope, so this item was their one hope for survival, and he destroys it. So this shows you how just because you have the hope aspect does not mean you're a good person, because the way you use it, your class, really does matter. Okay, so we have a few rage players.
Unfortunately.
The Bard of Rage, Gamzee, was able to use his rage to defeat the big boss, but he also frenzied on his own team.
Yeah.
So the Bard, we were saying, it can be a wild card and go either way, but he was also rage, right? So basically, he was just a killer. Yeah,
he was awful.
Sometimes he'd help, sometimes he would really, really, really hurt them all. A lot of the alternate timelines where Aradia, the Maid of Time, was coming back from, the entire team had died because the Bard of Rage had completely lost it.
Yeah, and basically killed everyone.
Yeah.
The Prince of Rage, Kurlas, was able to always appear calm while facilitating fury against his enemies.
Yeah, he was the Prince of Rage, so he was like the destroyer of rage, right? So he actually was always very calm, but kind of manipulative.
Yeah, that's true.
The Heir of Breath, John, the protagonist, was able to command the wind to combat enemies and to remove pollution.
Yeah.
So basically I feel like the Air class is the most superhero-y of all the classes.
Yeah.
Where you just got powers that you can shoot at people.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to go next?
The Page of Breath, Tavros, was able to create breath to resuscitate his allies.
Yep. Pretty simple. He was the page creates, right? The Seer of Blood, Kenkri, was able to, in an alternate timeline, have visions of his original self's friendships.
Oh, yeah, that was really interesting, actually. Although it didn't make him a better person in the end.
The alternate version was, because basically the seer can, they said they can see alternate versions of themselves sometimes, right? But since he was a seer of blood, the thing he saw, this alternate version of this player, Kenkri, was living in a very brutal autocracy.
Yeah, he was.
And so he was able to use his powers to see the alternate reality where he had a whole bunch of friends.
Yeah, exactly.
It was kind of sad.
The Knight of Blood, Karkat, was able to form alliances with powerful friends and foes for survival of the team.
Yeah, in fact, he actually made friends with one of the bosses for a while. They made a truce.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, that's your favorite character, isn't he?
Yes.
Anything you want to say?
Well, I don't know. Kanaya's up there, too.
Okay, she's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Although she never really realized her space powers, so she's not on this list.
Yeah.
All right, so now we got Life, right? There's a few Life players. The Thief of Life, Mina, was able to take many lives and extend the longevity of the lives of her slaves.
Yep.
So she was basically able to steal life and give it to herself and her own people.
Mm-hmm. The Maid of Life, Jane, was able to revive anybody back to life only a single time each, including herself.
Yeah, Jane was basically a free extra life for everyone that was her friend.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Including herself. She actually used it on herself once.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's, so it's not game breaking. You can only use it once.
Yeah.
The Witch of Life, Pfeffery, was able to break the rules by establishing an afterlife for her friends.
Yep, and that's basically what I got.
Oh, really? You got true Pisces. So
yeah,
that makes you Pfeffery's character, because a lot of this is based on astrology. That's the word. Mm-hmm. But cool. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Now we have Doom. The heir of Doom, Matuna, was able to stop impending doom upon the team by taking permanent brain damage.
Yeah. We never know exactly what happened with that.
But we just know that the doom never happened because basically Matuna took it all himself.
Mm-hmm. The Mage of Doom, Solix, was able to have prophetic visions of doom, but he survived his personal dooms.
Yes. So the Mage is kind of like a more active version of the Seer. Remember? Mm-hmm. Actually, what exactly was the definition for the Mage? I forgot. That one's a little hard. They forfeit their aspect to gain comprehensive knowledge of it.
Oh, so he forfeited any doom on himself.
Well, no. He had many dooms himself, but he didn't have like the power of doom. He forfeited his ability to use it, but he got all the knowledge of the doom. And because of that, he was able to survive his doom.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because he had all the knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next. Oh, is it my turn or yours? I think it's mine.
I think so, yeah.
The Thief of Light, we're doing light now, Vriska, was able to steal fortune from others to make herself incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
They just kind of boiled this down to saying, gank his luck. So, like, she could just be standing there, she ganks her enemy's luck, and then, like, all of a sudden, like, a boulder falls down on them.
Yep. The Seer of Light, Rose, was able to foresee what actions would lead to the most fortuitous path.
The Sylph of Light, Aranea, was able to make others realize their true potential and abilities. Mm-hmm. Remember, the Sylph's very indirect.
Yes. The Rogue of Void, Roxy, was able to turn invisible and steal nothingness from important items, creating them.
Yeah, we already talked about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the Page of Void, Horus, was able to create void by remaining unseen, even by omniscient beings.
Yeah.
And omniscient, like, they're supposed to see everything, and there are a few of them in the story, but the Page of Void was the exception to that.
Yeah, exactly.
And because of that, he was able to do things that were, like, literally seen as impossible simply because he was able to be unseen. And I don't mean, like, unseen, like, literally you can't see him, but almost, like, unknowable.
Yeah.
Right.
Even by omniscient beings.
Exactly. So yeah, those are all the aspects and the classes and the aspects. So, okay, we're going to get to the fun part of this episode because, we could call it in right here. We could be done. Let us know if you see any of these classes or aspects and you wish like you could have part of them. What do you think about such an interesting mythological type of like element system? I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I honestly think all the aspects are really cool because none of them are very classical.
Exactly, except for breath.
Yeah.
But before we end this, we thought, why don't we just come up with our own combinations? I mean, a lot of Homestuck fans really like to do this, but we're going to officially do it with the last 10 minutes we have on this podcast. You ready, Kira?
All right, sure.
Okay. How do you want to do this? Do you want to just come up with some individually on our own? Or
Well, let's start with yours because what did you get? You got Mind, but what was your symbol?
the extended zodiac doesn't tell you what class you get.
I know, but the symbol might help us come up with the class.
I got Sagiza, which is Sagittarius, Mind, and Durst, I think.
Okay. So what was Aqueous? What was his role?
He was the heir of Void.
So maybe heir, or what was Horus?
He was the page of Void.
Maybe heir or page of Mind.
Well,
how would that work?
Well, let's think. Okay, so heir of Mind. That means I would inherit the ability to have mind powers, right?
Yeah.
Now, we talked about how the heir is kind of like the most superpowery, right?
Yeah.
So, like the air of breath had the power to just like send wind out and do wind tornadoes and attacks.
Yeah.
So maybe I could do that, but with mind power. So I might be able to control people's minds.
That'd be cool.
Or at least influence other people's decisions.
Yeah,
I'd have like a mind blast that like once it hits them, they make a decision based on whatever I wanted them to do at that moment.
That'd be cool.
Maybe I could like affect them lean one way or the other.
What about page of mind?
A page of mind? Let's see. A page creates it, right? Mm-hmm. Although what else does it do? Let me look at the list. Okay, they provide it to others around them. So they create it and provide it to others around them. So I would create mine. I would create decisions and provide it to others around them, right? Mm-hmm. So
that'd be very helpful because I'm so indecisive.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think basically I would be able to create a layout of all the decisions before us, right? Mm-hmm. A few of our options that we have immediately, and maybe some knowledge of their consequences. Not as much as like the seer of mind, Terezi. She knew everything that would happen, right? Mm-hmm. But maybe as the page of mind, I could create a layout of a plan essentially and provide it to others. So like.
That's really funny because that sounds exactly like you.
So maybe like if we had a team, what I would do is I would enact my power. I'd create like a mind field or something. Mm-hmm. And basically all of our teammates would instantly know like, okay, well, these are our options.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't even have to like stop to discuss the plan. It would just be done like that. Mm-hmm. And then we discuss on what we want to do.
That'd be cool.
Knowing some of the outcomes.
Mm-hmm. You come up with one.
Okay, and you want to try to see what you'd come up with?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's do the Prince of Doom.
I was going to say blood. That one would be easy.
Okay, do Prince of Blood then.
Oh, okay. Prince of Blood. Basically, you destroy relationships.
No, that would be Prince of Heart.
No, blood is relationships.
Oh, wait, no, we already had Prince of Heart. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I was about to say.
Yeah, because blood's all about camaraderie and friendship and whatnot.
So basically you'd use your powers to destroy relationships of all kinds.
But that would mean that you also destroy all of your own relationships.
Yeah, that too. That would be awful. You'd be alone because you destroy all your relationships.
You'd be like one of those terrible boyfriends or girlfriends that's like, crap, I did it again.
Yeah.
I can imagine that person like cheating or having affairs a lot.
Yeah. Basically, you destroy relationships.
All right, you give me one now.
Okay, made of light.
Oh, okay. So that would mean that what's made again? They serve and assist others through the aspect of which they are made. Okay, so I essentially would be made of light. Like I would be made of it. Mm-hmm. And I would be able to serve others with it. Light being, fortitude and knowledge. Mm-hmm. Oh, so I could serve others with knowledge, or at least fortune. So
you'd be like a teacher, and also maybe someone who is lucky to be around?
Yeah, I think, I would be very lucky, but the luck wouldn't be for me. It would affect those around me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would also be knowledgeable, be kind of like a teacher figure, able to maybe foresee some things and tell them. Mm-hmm. There's kind of two things. Maybe I could foresee fortuitous outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, no, not foresee, but like, through me, they can find out. I'll never know.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that'd be cool. I think that could work.
My turn to pick one for you.
Oh, great.
Okay, let's do Muse of Rage.
Oh, God, that's really hard. You have to self-sacrifice yourself through anger, righteous fury, and anger.
Hey, maybe some type of revolutionary.
I guess. Maybe. I don't know. That would be really difficult.
Somehow your anger would have to be like self-sacrificial.
Mm-hmm. It would have to be.
And it would have to be successful. I mean, rage is already kind of a hard one to do. Like, there's no like rage beam or anything.
Yeah.
You just get angry and powerful, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the rage would just facilitate you to be able to make this self-sacrifice. But it's out of anger. So like maybe during like a big boss fight, you could use your Muse of Rage powers to essentially destroy the final boss, but also killing yourself in some way.
I don't know. It's possible. That'd be a really difficult one.
I don't think... rage is about strength, right? Mm-hmm. So it would affect your physicality. There wouldn't be any apparent magic. You would just... It would make you more able to do a self-sacrificial nature of brute strength and anger. You actually, I wouldn't be surprised if like that anger would spread to others around you.
It's possible.
Like, because you're self-sacrificing for other people. Maybe they feel fury at your sacrifice and they're the ones that actually win the day, not you.
I don't know. That one's a really tough one.
Yeah, I tried to pick a hard one.
Yeah, that was a good one though. Thanks for your help though on that.
Oh, yeah, I did all the work. Crap.
Let me pick one for you.
Okay.
Which of blood?
Okay.
Which of blood?
So a witch gets like magic powers in right now. So let's see. Where's witch at? And manipulate their aspect, break the rules, and choose which facet to invoke. All right. So they could break the rules of friendship. And they could choose which parts of it to invoke.
So maybe they have relationships that would be outside normal bounds of social, like they would break the rules of regular relationships.
Right. So I think the Witch of Blood would be able to form camaraderie and friendships and outside of social stigmas and norms. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think the Witch of Space would be the kind of person that might ally with the enemy. Mm-hmm. Being able to like even get warring partners to agree to a truce. Mm-hmm. Now we talked how the Knight of Blood kind of did that, but that was just with himself and one boss.
And he used it as a weapon, you know?
Right. I think the Witch of Space would be, more dangerous. The witches tend to be more dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So I think the Witch of Space would be able to form alliances that you would never see coming.
That would be hilarious, actually.
Like, you get Jack Noir, who's like the biggest bad guy, right? Or one of them. And you get him to befriend, I don't know, what's a good guy?
PM?
No, because they're already too similar.
I don't know.
You get Jack Noir to like befriend a denizen, and they work together. The denizens are all big, giant snake bosses. So you get two very different bosses to essentially ally.
They're not all snakes.
They're basically all snakes.
No, they aren't.
They're mythological figures based on snakes.
Echnida?
Based on a snake.
Okay, whatever.
Are you talking about Echidna?
Echidna,
Yeah,
yes.
based on a snake.
Echidna is an actual animal.
Yes, but that's not what Echidna refers to. Echidna refers to the Greek mythological mother of all monsters.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
She's a snake with breasts.
Okay.
Because she had to feed the monsters.
That's disturbing. Okay.
In Greek mythology, Echidna's the mother of the Hydra, the Nemean lion, the Ladon, I mean.
Okay, I don't need to know this.
And the Chimera.
Cool. All right, so you come up with one for me then.
All right, this is the last one though.
Okay.
Let's do a sylph of time.
Okay, let me see sylph.
Sylph means you're going to like indirectly do an abstraction of your aspect and utilize it to benefit others metaphysically.
Wow, okay. I think maybe Sylph would be able to send other people through time or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. But metaphysically. So like they wouldn't actually go through time. Maybe they would just like almost like astrally project themselves through time.
Yes, that could work.
All right.
I think that would be the best way of putting it because that one's kind of difficult.
So like you go to a Sylph of time and the Sylph, she would be like, okay, you know what? You want to see what it was like for me here 10 years ago? All of a sudden, it's like you're watching 10 years ago in this exact spot.
Yeah, I think that would be
But you're just like a ghost kind of thing until you snap back to reality.
Yeah, because you don't actually go through time.
Yep. All right, well, I think this has been an episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's a little different. I definitely want to go and do the Pokemon element types now.
Yeah.
Break that down.
Yeah.
But I think this was definitely really cool and interesting. We love Homestuck, and we definitely want to do more of it in the future. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this is Game Theorem. We have social media throughout Paradox Space.
Yes.
And we have an email, gametheorems@gmail.com. Let us know if you have any feedback, suggestions, or corrections.
All right. Bye.
Bye.